Redevelopment Authority meeting of January 10th, 2022. My goodness. 6 o'clock, call to order. And the roll, I'm sure.
Yep, I've got all the attendance and Megan's excuse. She said she was going to be out of town.
Right, okay. Then we could, approval of the agenda. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the agenda. I would need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Seconded. All right, all in favor?
Yep.
All set. You want to call the roll on that, or how you want to do it?
You can just call
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, and the motion passed. Public hearing, we have none. Public comments. At this time, the chair will ask if there's any public comments. None. Correspondence. This time, the chair will ask if there's any correspondence has been received to be included in the record.
No correspondence.
No correspondence. Could you scroll, please? There you go. Oh, are we there?
Yep.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the December 14th, 2021 meeting minutes.
And I forgot to include those in the packet, so I've got them right here. We can take a minute to look at them. I apologize for that.
Yeah, well, I think four of
You
them.
would send them right after last meeting.
Yeah,
Oh, did I send the
Yeah, I
draft
thought
out
you
right
had.
away?
did,
Okay,
yep.
all right. I feel a little
Yeah,
better. I just didn't put them in the packet.
Alrighty.
I'll make a motion. to
There we
approve.
go. And seconded by,
I'll second.
Shelley, and, okay. Any discussion over the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Now you're gonna have to go back to the agenda. There you go. Now we get to the financial reports. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the financial reports, the balance sheet, and revenue and expense. And that will be brought to you by Mr. Bradford, I assume.
Yep, they were in your packet. There's really no change from last month.
Okay.
We've got on the balance sheet the cash less our liabilities that we have to pay out. And some of the cash is prepayments for
Tax.
services that Roman's crew will be rendering on the Brownfield plan and the Act 381 work plan and the development reimbursement agreement. So he does have some invoices that you'll see at the next time we meet that those are going to get paid out. And then again, on the revenue and expenditures, there was no activity for the month, so it's the same as you looked at last month.
Yeah. Alrighty. And,
Need a motion?
She would need a motion to approve the financial, or is that both? You want them both on one motion? To approve the balance sheet and the revenue and expense sheet. The motion I would need.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance sheet and the revenue and expenditures.
There you go, seconded by,
I'll second.
there you go. Any discussion over the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Under old business, we have none. Under new business, the Brownfield plan for the Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC redevelopment Hampton Inn. Fishbeck has prepared a Brownfield plan for the Hampton Inn project as proposed by Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC. The plan incorporates developer items, city infrastructure, a contribution to establish a Brownfield revolving loan fund, and administration fees. Total estimated costs in the plan are $1,549,995. At this time, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the Brownfield plan for the Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC redevelopment and further recommend its approval by the City of Manistee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to run through the plan with the commission if I could, because there were some changes from what was in your packet. Plus, I just think it'd be beneficial to be able to go through it. And, Roman was the one who prepared the plan with assistance from some of his colleagues in the city and the developer. So it's really a collaborative effort, but I thought it'd be good just for the benefit of the commission, plus anybody who's watching to kind of run through it.
Oh, all right.
With you. So I did give you a copy of it, but I've got it up on the screen here. It might be
Right.
easier to fall through that. So, the state guidelines on what needs to be in a plan are kind of what we follow. We try to put everything in there that the state wants, but nothing that they don't want, so it's easy for them to review and doesn't become unwieldy to take a look at. So the first section here is just kind of the introduction of the plan. It gives a little bit of information about the authority and how the BRA was authorized and the different statutes. Section 1.1 talks about the proposed redevelopment, basically constructing a 5-story hotel with about 101 guest rooms, and then improvements to the site to support that, as well as public infrastructure, and we'll get into that a little bit more later in the plan. I'll show you what everything, and we talked about this at the last meeting as well. Then it's required to describe what the eligible property is. The site's about 2 acres in size, and it's been determined to be functionally obsolete, which is what makes it eligible to be funded under Brownfield tax increment financing. There's an attachment that shows that later in the Brownfield plan. Then there's information that's required to be in here by the statute. It describes what costs are going to be paid with the tax increment capture, and this is important because as the project goes along and as the developer starts to submit invoices for reimbursement, Roman and his crew is going to be reviewing that with primarily, and I'll have oversight on that, to make sure that anything that they're asking for reimbursement is actually eligible for costs. And normally that's not a problem. However, at times there's things that get in there that may not be eligible that you have to pull out and make sure that those aren't approved. So there's quite a review process once we start getting into that. That's 6 to 8 months out still, but that's part of the services that Roman provides under the fee that they're paid for this type of work. So that's a big deal beyond preparing the plan, is to be able to review those costs. And you can see the things that are eligible here include the demolition, any lead and asbestos abatement, because it's a 1950s building, site prep for the new hotel, infrastructure improvements, contingency if needed, the cost of preparing this work plan and brownfield plan are things that are in there. This is a summary of the cost. So there's $6,000 in pre-approved specific activities, which is site investigation and things like that maybe were done in advance. Then you've got the demolition, lead and asbestos abatement. We talked about the site preparation, including foundations and piers, clearing and grubbing, and grading and land balancing. Then you've got infrastructure improvements, which include some public parking, a water main extension. That's half of the cost of the water main. It's actually going to cost about $350,000. Stormwater retention, and then a concrete driveway over to the boat launch parking ramp, and contingency, and also preparation of the brownfield and the work plan. So those costs that the developer is going to pay and then get reimbursed for is about $758,000. And then if you go further down...
Can I make one comment?
Yep.
Because I know there was a question of who is going to ultimately review this. Well, this is local approval, and then there will be state approval that will be pursued in the Michigan Strategic Fund, which is, MEDC works with that board for this approval. The Eagle eligible activities that are on here, they do say pre-approved, which in the statute there are certain activities that can be conducted that don't require approval, and because these are the only items that Eagle, and I know it's a smaller line item compared to anything, but just so you know that this will not have to go to Eagle. It's already pre-approved, and that's why it will only have to go to MEDC.
And that's in contrast to the South Washington one that had to get approval for both because there was more things in that one. So it's about $750,000 for developer costs that they'll be getting reimbursed for. And then on the city side, we're going to be paying for half or a little less than half of the water main loop and extension. And then we're going to resurface the loop drive, basically just past the fish cleaning station all the way around the whole loop. And then there's a contingency there. That's about $509,000. We also get to fund our administrative fee. And then at the end of it, when the developer and the city have all been reimbursed, which is probably going to be 10, 12 years out, give or take 13 years, then we get a we get to pay for or fund a revolving fund for the Brownfield Authority, which will be nice because you'll be able to facilitate other projects down the road. Then it asks for a summary of the eligible activities, which we've kind of talked about. We've got, you know, the demolition, lead and asbestos, and it just describes it in a little bit more detail.
Right.
Estimate of captured taxable value and tax increment revenues. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the plan, because in this case, there's not a lot of environmental, and the infrastructure and stuff's pretty straightforward. The question is, how are these tax increments gonna flow in? That's where a lot of time was spent. This has changed a little bit from what was in your packet, and the reason it was changed is because the base value for the project went up considerably from what was in there originally, and that's because we've gone into 2022 now rather than 2021.
Sure.
So that's actually good for everybody, because it's gonna generate quite a bit more taxes that are just gonna go to the taxing jurisdictions than what was there right now. But yet it retains enough to allow a reasonable time period for the developer and the city to get paid back. So that's the one thing that changed on that. The first year of capture will be 2022. We'll see that in the TIF tables that we're gonna run through here, but it just talks about some of the things that relate to that. There's not gonna be any bonds issued for this. The duration of the Brownfield plan is important. It's 30 years, or when the city and the developer are fully reimbursed. We only expect this will probably go out in 10 to 15 years. But we wanted to have that in there just to be safe in case something weird happens, which can happen in things like this.
Yeah, that's true.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
This is built, and they're in this 30-year thing. Halfway through that 30 years, if they were to sell, this would still, they would assume everything that is in
Yep,
this written up?
yep. What might change is the property would uncap.
Yeah.
So let's say 5 years from now, they said, somebody made us an offer we can't refuse for this property, and they decided not to hold on to it, they wanted to sell it to another owner. That property potentially would uncap, so
Yeah.
the taxable value would be higher and the reimbursement would come in faster.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it asks for a legal description, so we've got that provided in there, and then the property layouts, there's some attachments there we'll look at. These are questions that the state requires. There's not gonna be any residents or families displaced, so there doesn't have to be a relocation plan or relocation costs.
No.
We move on a little bit down to some of the figures, and we've got just a site map. Obviously, everybody knows it's down at First Street Beach. This is kind of just a little bit more of a zoomed-in area. It shows the existing hotel. Then there's some site plans. You can see, you know, there's the parking is gonna, for the hotel, is gonna be behind it, kind of as it is now, and they're leaving these trees to the extent possible that they can to help shield it. Shows the retention and infiltration basin, and here you can see some of the parking that's gonna be built along the loop.
Yeah.
Just another view of this, a little bit different angle. And then, kind of the same thing here, just some information.
The driveway, if I could.
Uh-huh.
If I could, the driveway to the, oh, there it is, right there where
Yep.
it goes to the, north, that's gonna be cut right exactly across from the driveway to the end.
Yeah, and the agreement that was negotiated with the developer is that will be used for overflow parking.
Yeah, right.
And because they didn't, you know, they may use a maximum of 20 spaces, that would be pretty rare that they would do that.
Yeah.
They're gonna build 20 spaces around the loop driver. The city needs them for other reasons, so it's a good kind of a trade-off. Plus, having that access drive will make that parking lot a lot more used.
Oh,
Right now,
sure.
it's totally underutilized.
Yeah, I know it.
So that's a good thing from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
All right.
So these are the TIF, what we call the TIF tables. Oh,
I just have a couple
Sure.
questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So my first question was just that retention stuff, that's all on city property, correct?
It is, yep. And this is gonna service some areas that the city has drainage issues as well, so that's why they're paying for it. Shouldn't really impact the nature of the park much, you know, it'll just be kind of a natural area there, which is what it is right now.
And then my understanding too is it's not gonna be any standing water, it'll be there, like, just when it's raining, there'll be water, but then it'll all drain off.
Should, it's all sand, I would think it would go down pretty quickly, yeah.
And then just,
With the parks around there, you wouldn't want any standing water with kids,
Yeah.
because they're gonna be drawn right to it.
Yeah, when they're constructing that, I guess if there's any clay, they'll have to figure that out, but yeah, the intention isn't to have it be standing. And I know Mr. McCullough was involved in these discussions too, and,
Yeah, yeah,
and
no,
Spicer drew
quite
this up, so, which is the city's engineer, so.
and then just my second part too is,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure, cause I haven't been in that part of the parking lot, but where it's going into the other parking lot, is any of that parking lot being resurfaced or no?
Not as part of this.
Okay.
no. That's been on the radar for a long time on the city. It's still in pretty good shape, but it's a big area of asphalt, and it's gonna cost an awful lot of money to do it when it gets ready to be done, but that's not in part of this
Of
plan.
how they can obtain use of that parking lot when that belongs to the city and that, and the way we had charter built up years ago, anytime that that property or any city property was given to a commercial person for use, it had to go before the people.
We're not giving away the parking spots. We're allowing,
Gonna use it.
they're only gonna use it when they need to for overflow, but it's public parking. They could park there anyway.
Right.
So we're not giving anything away, and in fact, we're getting 20 new spaces back because of it. So, yeah,
Because
this
parking,
doesn't,
when it's hot down there, you can't find a place to park now. And then when you have this whole complex, it's even gonna be worse.
well, Marlene, I would say that's true in this area here. This parking lot is full.
Right.
But I guarantee you, this parking lot is not. And by virtue of us resurfacing this driveway, or resurfacing the loop and adding some sidewalks and adding more curb cuts, it's gonna make this more accessible and actually free up more parking for the public to conveniently use.
I think those loop spaces will get used.
They will get used a
First.
ton, yeah, absolutely. But you're right, this parking lot here, if you were just looking at that, that's full in the summer. But this big parking lot, unless you're there for the Forest Festival or the peak of fishing season, it is not even close to being full. It's just not as close to the beach house, so people don't use it as much. And hopefully this will actually make it easier to use, because we're gonna add some sidewalks and stuff
Yeah.
with that, which will be good. And you'll see that on another drawing down the road a little bit. Any other questions on the site plans at all? Okay. So the TIF table here, Roman, do you want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Sure, yeah. The first table, table one, is basically just a capture scenario of what is available to capture. And so you have the millages all on the left, and at the top, you'll see kind of the year of the plan, starting in 2022, if it's adopted. And if you recall, they were going to receive a 10-year tax abatement, which that's represented by the highlighted cells that basically, if you see all the dashes that are in those columns, basically nothing's going to be captured because it's abated. And so that table reflects that. Unfortunately, because these tables are so big, they carry into a couple pages. But essentially, you can see after that abatement expires in approximately 2032, then you can kind of see what the tax capture will be annually. And it's extended out to the extent that approximately the developer and city will get reimbursed, and a couple of years of deposit into a local Brownfield revolving fund. So really, just demonstrating what can be captured. That flows into the next table, which is really kind of tells the rest of the story, the reimbursement. It will. I know it's busy. This is a state format, but this kind of lays out how the reimbursement is going to be scheduled over time, and you'll notice that there's a beginning balance. We've kind of laid it out with developer and City of Manistee total eligible activity costs, which, if you remember in the narrative, we had this roughly 750 for the developer, the city roughly 510, 509. Basically, once that tax abatement is drawn out, and again, you have highlighted cells showing where the tax abatement is at the local level. Once this plan is submitted to the state and we get state approval, the state tax capture can occur during the tax abatement because the tax abatement's local only. So there still will be capture going on, but it will be going on as agreed upon with negotiations between the city and the developer at a 75 to 25% ratio. Developer getting 75% and city 25% until that's all paid out. In the year that the tax abatement expires or following, then you have full capture of local and state to the extent it's necessary to finally pay all those eligible activities. And that really has the developer getting reimbursed in, I believe it was 2036, and then the city 2038. And then after that, there's a couple of years where this extends to put $250,000. Now this can change. This is an estimate. So if it's higher, the taxable value is higher, the window shrinks because there's more tax increment revenues to pay back the eligible activities. And it has been conservatively estimated what the taxable value will be upon completion, intentionally. And even in some cases, the inflation at 1% might be a little bit skinny, but it could be even higher, 1.5, 2.5 even. But that's done on purpose to kind of give you a scenario that maybe is more conservative, so that when you look at this kind of gives you kind of a worst case scenario of how far this would extend out. And so that's really, I think, the nuts and bolts of that. I don't think there's anything, the admin fees will be captured because there's no local tax capture for a while.
Right.
That probably will be back-end loaded once they can, but they have 32,000 that can be captured, so that will be covered on the back end.
Admin fee, does that just come back to Brownfield, like as miscellaneous income, or?
Yeah, it comes back to the Brownfield Authority, and then at some point, the Brownfield Authority is going to pay the city for my time. We haven't charged that.
Okay.
But it also helps to fund the Brownfield stuff, so if they have to bring in other consultants or
Okay.
whatever.
And that can go in a fund, kind of an admin fund. There are other uses under the statute for that admin. If the city wanted on other projects to actually utilize those funds, that is feasible. So that's a little bit different than the local Brownfield revolving fund that's being considered. That can be used for a myriad of eligible activities, and it's a nice resource because it doesn't require state approval to tap into that.
And just for my own curiosity, say like you said, should the tax table accelerate, maybe accelerate the repayment? How is the repayment determined? Is that in the agreement?
You'll see it, well, it's footnoted here.
Okay.
And that was actually one of the things that we were negotiating today, and so what we settled
I
on
was
is.
gonna say, who's gonna hold them accountable to accelerate that payment if?
Well, we do. I mean,
Okay.
I pay that out as the city
Oh, okay.
treasurer. So two things here, I guess. So the negotiation today, which you'll see is reflected in the development and reimbursement agreement when we get to that, is gonna show that the developer is gonna get 75% and the city's gonna get 25%. And the reason that we landed on that was just a give and take with the developer, but part of it was their projections hadn't anticipated that the taxable value of that parcel was gonna pop up by 4 times or 5 times because of the land going up last year. So it was kind of putting them in a little bit of a crunch with what they had told of their banks and investors and stuff. So that doesn't hurt the city. We were able to cash flow it and get that back, but it just made it a little bit easier to get through. But that's all spelled out in the development and reimbursement agreement. And then to answer your question is from a logistical mechanical standpoint, I capture these taxes as they're paid in throughout the course of the year. And then when I settle with the county treasurer, and we're all done with the 2021 or 2020, whatever year it is, tax collection, then all those monies that came in with the brownfield, we put in our spreadsheet, make sure everything ties out, works all right, and then I normally cut a check sometime in mid-August.
Oh, okay.
And I pay the developer, or if the city, or if we're, capturing the admin fee, which we won't in this one until later, those all get paid out. So I do that once a year to the developer.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So then the next section is going to be the resolutions approving the Brownfield plan, and that'll be a copy of the minutes from this meeting and a copy of the minutes from the city council meeting, assuming they approve it on the 18th. Attachment B, conceptual renderings. These are just ones that the developer provided. So you've got, just some different looks of the hotel. Attachment C is the assessor's determination that the property is obsolete. So that was reviewed by Molly, the city assessor, and she issued that certificate.
Yeah.
Or statement of obsolescence. We're going to skip the reimbursement agreement. It's an attachment to the Brownfield plan, but there's a separate agenda item for that, so we'll go through that when we get to it. And then this one is the city infrastructure location. So you can see that the loop from roughly here just past the fish cleaning station, all the way around, to here is going to get redone.
Right.
And into that little parking lot on the west side,
Right here?
up a little bit. Yeah, that one, that 2100.
Yep, this is
okay.
gonna be done and improved too a little bit. It's not shown and highlighted, but they're gonna fix that up as well. And there'll be some curb and gutter added and some sidewalks added for connectivity. So that's, and then, these parking areas that were shown here are part of what you saw earlier, where the extra parking is gonna go. And then for the water main, they're gonna loop it, basically, there's water down to here, but it basically has to loop through, just down Harbor Drive, that's already there, but it's a dead end. So
Right.
they're gonna loop this water main here. This is what's gonna get constructed. And that will help not only for fire flows, which aren't enough to service the hotel, but it will help with the water quality for all these residences,
Oh, yeah.
because that's a dead end right now.
Yeah, I believe.
So that's, the water department's pretty excited about that. So that's kind of the required components of the Brownfield plan. Again, it was a collaborative effort. We've been talking with the developer for quite a while now, but kind of all came together with the last couple items today. But, so that's why I wanted to run through, because it's a little bit different than what you had in your packet. But I don't have anything more. Do you have anything more on that, Roman?
Actually, just a toss out question, how long have you been working? Would something like this take a couple years to work on? Or a year?
We've been talking with the developer. It went back to when Thad was here, and Thad and Jeff. So they've been, and the planning commission process took a really long time. So
Yeah.
there's been conversations going back. Wow, this agreement doesn't take a ton of time to put together, but it's still intensive, because you got to get all the components. You got to make sure all the numbers tie out and make sense.
Make
and
every sure.
and it's the result of a negotiation. So
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
normal circumstance where the timeline for the developer wasn't as fast as this one is, because they've got to get started, what we sent them, 2 weeks ago now, or 10 days ago, would prompt this conversation with the negotiation, and that might stretch out for a couple of weeks. But we kind of had to do it quicker, and it wasn't a lot of points of contention. It just was maybe a little bit different than what they were thinking, and there were some things that had changed. So we worked through that all this morning, though. And
This morning.
yeah, we pretty much knew where we needed to be, and I think they realized where they needed to be, and it worked out. They've been really good to work with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it sounds like, it took some time in planning, but yeah. So now we need a motion to approve to, move it to council?
yeah, let me ask Roman a question. Is this motion, the way it's worded, good enough as long as we give them a copy of the minutes for the state?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. So I guess that would be where we're at, is if the board wants to approve the Brownfield plan, then we would need a motion, or
Okay.
Need a vote on that motion, I guess, as you read through it
Yeah.
earlier.
So if we understand everything here, we'll need a motion to approve the Brownfield plan for the Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC redevelopment Hampton Inn, if we could.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Shelley,
I will second it.
second. Any discussion over the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes. Then moving along, if you would, to development and reimbursement agreement for Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC redevelopment. The Brownfield Administrator has prepared a development and reimbursement agreement for the Hotel Ventures Manistee LLC Brownfield plan. The agreement is a three-way agreement between the developer, the City of Manistee, and the City of Manistee Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The agreement specifies the terms and conditions for the parties to receive reimbursement from captured tax increment revenue for their eligible costs. Total estimated costs in the plan are $1,549,995. The agreement was reviewed by the city attorney. At this time, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority can act to approve the development and reimbursement agreement and recommend its approval by the city of Manistee.
Similarly to what we just did, I'd like to run through the reimbursement agreement too.
Alrighty.
Because again, it changed slightly from what you had in your packet. So,
Yeah.
the last time you guys approved a big brownfield plan was the South Washington area brownfield. And that development and reimbursement agreement was really long, really complex, and a slog to read through. And part of the reason for that is, well, first of all, it was a more complex project than this, but second of all, it was kind of based on the brownfield agreements that they did up at the Commons up in Grand Traverse County, which was, had a million attorneys looking at it and everything. And so I wanted to work with Roman to come up with a simpler format that still is protective and documents everything. And I think we did a pretty good job with this, and I think this is one we might use in the future, and we can tweak it for future projects. Like, for instance, I think we'll try to use this for the Gateway one. When that comes around, it may need a few more things in it because that's a more complex project.
Sure.
Because it got the DDA involved and stuff. But this worked out, I think, fairly well, and it's pretty easy to understand. So basically, you know, it talks about the parties to the agreement, which is the city, the Brownfield Authority, and the developer. So it's a three-way agreement.
Right.
And then it has the recitals that kind of run through the, you know, the basis for the plan. It talks about the hotel, the authority to enter into this agreement, the eligible activities, the fact that it's an obsolete property. And then it talks about what the project is, which is the hotel, the amount of the developer eligible activities, which is the 758 number you've seen, and then the city eligible activities of 509 plus the approximately 250,000 in brownfield TIF revenue. So then it goes to the agreement. Okay, so the first part of the agreement is the reimbursement source, and that's basically specifies that the only reimbursement is going to be coming from the captured taxes. There's no other revenue to pay that. So if this project for some reason doesn't develop enough TIF or doesn't develop or generate it as quick as people were expecting, or conversely faster, that's where it gets paid out of. And it also specifies that personal property taxes are not included in this plan. And that was a point of discussion this morning, but we arrived on that. We normally don't approve personal property taxes to be captured, so those taxes are retained for all the taxing jurisdictions.
Do you have an estimate on what those might be?
I don't right now, and that's one of the issues. It's gonna be significant,
Yeah.
but with the way they've been, the state has changed the personal property tax laws over the last 8 years. They're still morphing, so those are potentially shorter lived than maybe what they'd been in the past, so, because of the way they do the depreciation and some of that stuff. One of the discussion points was, we're bringing money in, we're capturing it, how's it gonna get paid out? And the city agreed to have its costs, we'll get 25% of it, and the developer will get 75%. They had run their projections without there being any city infrastructure, and they were getting 100%. So this was kind of the compromise And also the fact that we're gonna be getting more taxes based on the property and that higher taxable value in the base. So we're comfortable that will be fine. And then it talks about the 250 to the revolving fund. And then, I mentioned about when we pay it out. We pay that out, the city will no later than August 31st each year that the revenue is available. That gives time to settle with the county. Then it talks about the reimbursement process, which is what does the developer and the city have to send to basically to me, and then I'll get with Roman. It'll be copies of invoices that have to be detailed, have to show exactly what's going on. It's possible Roman will be up here on site occasionally as the thing is getting built out. Just to kind of watch what's going on and observe, especially when they're doing some of the site prep, because that's some of the bigger costs, and some of those might not, necessarily all be eligible, but anyway. So, this lays out what they have to, the paperwork that they have to file, and then also
Sure.
what our responsibility is to review that, and if we need to get clarifications, and it does that on both sides, both for the developer and for the city.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what this,
To submit requests.
what's that?
They have 6 months to submit requests for reimbursement.
Well,
Is that typical?
The 6 months is within when it's all done. All of them have, they can do them quarterly,
Uh-huh.
but actually, sometimes they stretch out longer than that. That was Roman's suggestion to cap it at 6 months. He said they've seen them.
I was gonna say, I would think that things would get lost after 6 months.
Well, yeah, and that happens,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you have, or they're found, and then,
No, I
you know,
have
a
projects like
year.
that. Oh, we forgot that.
Right, and then they show up and, maybe the development agreement did not have a sunset, and then they're kind of like, oh man, how do we deal with this? So just thought it was prudent to have that in there.
I like that.
Sure.
It talks about what happens if there's a partial payment and how that'll be kind of made back up. Then it talks about the city reimbursement process, which is just a parallel to what we just went through. We have to follow the same rules. So for our infrastructure, we have to have detailed invoices. It's got to be eligible. It's got to be, make sure that that's all approved. The term of the agreement, and this is really important. The maximum term is December 31st, 2052. But if the TIF costs have been fully reimbursed prior to that, then the plan is over. So it's kind of an either or. And then this was an area we had some discussion. We had put some firm dates in here, and the developer wanted to use the language reasonable best efforts to start construction, and that's okay. We added that to the city side of it too, because with the pandemic and all of that, and they want to get started, but who knows? I think that's just kind of protective of both parties.
Yeah, I do too.
We allow for access to each other's property to be able to construct stuff that we have to construct, which is good. We can do joint construction, so if we tell the developer that we want them to build the water main portion of it, we can do that, or vice versa. They can have the city, they would pay and get
Work
reimbursed.
together anyhow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
This was a point of discussion. We had put in here originally that they could not appeal their property taxes for the whole life of the project plus 5 additional years. And they had changed that to say, we can appeal it at any time we want, and you'll just hold the tax revenues in abeyance until that's settled. And so we settled on, once it's fully assessed and on the tax rolls, you get one bite at the apple. If you don't like that, you can appeal it, and after that, you can't until the project's done, or and I think that's fair to both sides, honestly.
Yeah.
For sure.
They're not gonna appeal it unless it's outrageously assessed, because that'll slow down their reimbursement. But
Right.
they have to make sure that they can afford the
Yes.
taxes on the project, right?
Yeah.
And Molly will be
Well, you said
fair.
2022's first year?
Well, there won't be any taxes to be captured though, because they're not really gonna have anything, so it's really gonna be 2023.
Yeah, they won't have any assets in service,
So I think it'll be the assessment, whatever the value is as of December 31st, 2023, then that'll become the base for the 2024 tax year, is when they'll be able to appeal, if
Right,
that
right.
needs to be. Hopefully they won't have to do that. And it just talks about adjustments if there was any reassessment for whatever reason. That's not likely to happen. And then just a bunch of legalese about the legislative authorization and where the notices need to be, and can things be assigned, and all severability and governing, all those are all George type items. So it was a lot simpler. This was 7 pages. I think the agreement for South Washington area was over 20.
Really?
Wow.
So, and we tried to incorporate what we thought. And like I say, George reviewed it. Their attorney, who's very versed in this stuff, reviewed it, and everybody seemed happy with it.
It's
So,
gonna be my question, that all the related parties had seen it. And
yep, everybody's seen it. And like I say, we worked through those few issues this morning. So I think it's a good agreement.
Well, there you go. I'm sure you know more than I do about it. But, all right, with that in mind, then we would like a motion, I assume, to approve and move this forward. All right.
Make a motion to approve the development and reimbursement agreement.
Yeah, okay. And
I'll second.
Seconded, already. Any discussion over the, motion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And motion passes. And then we move to staff reports. And the staff will update the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority on the status of current projects and any other information the commissioners should be aware of. And as the Gateway project is Eagle. So I don't know. What do you-
I'll let Roman talk about that a little bit. It's still early on that. But do you have any update for that?
Yeah, I mean, not anything since last month has really changed. I think because the developer, the entity is affiliated with the Hampton Inn, that, that's kind of the first priority was to get through that. And then I think that the focus eventually will come back to this. And we're still working out, appropriate time frame to really get started. I mean, a lot of the items have already been put in motion, and now they're just kind of paused to start actually pursuing eligible activities. I mean, Eagle has weighed in and approved some of those already to get started, but we're just kind of waiting till the development team has a little more firm idea of their plans, and then I think that'll move forward pretty quickly.
And I know that Roman's colleague, Susan Wenslick, who's kind of taking the lead on that one, has set up a recurring status update meeting with all the parties so that everybody keeps staying on the same page to move it forward. But very soon, once they get some of those numbers back together, there's going to be a whole lot of conversation that's going to involve this body, because we got to put together that whole Brownfield plan. And one of the things that'll probably be in that Brownfield plan, which is totally new territory for the city and for this thing, is a parking ramp.
Oh, yeah.
That this body will probably, at least initially own or finance and then turn it over to the city more than likely. But those are all conversations that we're still working through.
All right.
And this is a big project. This will be even more complex than the South Washington area one when we get to that, because there's just a lot of parties and a lot of pieces, and get the
Yeah, I would
DDA
think
involved.
it would
And
be, yeah.
so,
Big plans they had. I don't know if it's still all intact that they're going to build it all, but yeah.
yeah, they're working through all that now, and we got to get some updated cost estimates. And so it's, I think once this log jam is through, then they'll be able to turn to that a little bit more. And I suspect by, I don't know, maybe end of May, we should probably have in a similar spot where everything's approved and ready to go. I'm just speculating, but I think that's probably fair to say. Because I think the Gateway project from the timing standpoint, in terms of actually construction being open, is probably lagging this at least a year. Because nobody wants to open a hotel in October around here. It has to be opened in the spring. So that's a big deal for the developer.
Yeah, right. All right, thank you. Anything else you got then? Nothing?
No.
Roman? No? All right, then we move to the next meeting dates, and that's, I suppose, when needed, right, I assume?
So does the 6 o'clock work better for people? Is
Yes.
that, I think I'm hearing that. Okay. And is Monday a good day for that then, or not? Or is there a better day during the week?
I never had a meeting on Monday yet.
We can move it to Wednesday. I don't think there's conflicts. Tuesday doesn't work because of city council. And I
Yeah.
know some people take long weekends one way or the other. So if a Wednesday works better, we could try to shoot for that. I can check the calendar. I don't know.
Either
if that.
would work, yeah.
Do you have any preference, Monday or Wednesday?
I like Monday, but
I would prefer Monday as well.
Okay, we can just leave it on Monday then.
or Michelle?
Either works for me. Mhm.
So what I'm gonna do is I will cancel, we had that recurring meeting, at 2 o'clock on whatever day it was. I'll send a reminder around, and we just, Monday, I guess this is the second Monday of the month at 6 PM.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't have a Valentine, but I know at least a few of you do, so.
If we have it on Valentine's Day,
30 years ago.
I'm gonna be 80 that day. I expect balloons, cake.
You got it.
Oh, boy, here we go.
And I don't know if we'll need one in February. It just depends on where the gateway thing is at, so, but we'll.
Well, that's what I mean, you
Yeah.
basically, as needed,
Yeah.
but,
But we'll shoot for the standard, just so you can mark it off on your calendar as the second Wednesday at 6.
second
Makes sense.
Monday at 6.
Second
yeah.
Monday at 6, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, alrighty. And then, we established that, is everybody okay with that?
Works for me.
Then we'll go down to members' discussion, ladies first.
I have nothing.
Kip,
Just a question out of curiosity for me is that the 250,000 that you talked about, the revolving thing after that. So is this the first time that the city of Manistee is going to have that, or this thing will have that? Because I think
Yeah.
that would be extremely helpful
Yeah.
once you finally get that as
The
well.
problem is it's at the end, but at least it's a starting.
At least
Yeah.
it's a start
Yep.
of something that we haven't had in the past, because I think
No.
that will be so much easier to get stuff rolling a lot quicker when you have that kind of money to be able to do things with.
yeah, that's,
And we're hoping to do a similar thing on Gateway. So
Okay,
maybe
nice.
between the two of them, we end up with a $500,000 or
It's a
something.
nice
which-
little carrot for potential
Yeah.
other projects to come in and say,
Exactly.
well, we already have this
Well-
front money and
weren't we talking with, who else was coming in and we were gonna, or what another project was it that we were gonna have a surplus that we could bring people in with an offer of help to
Because
them?
of that.
What
the
the heck
work
project
permit's
was
gonna
that?
need To get approved too.
What?
Oh, for Hampton, yeah.
I thought it was with the
Yeah,
planning
that's
there.
true.
I don't recall, but yeah, that's,
Will that be
yeah, give them
ready?
starters money. Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
Marlene,
it's
you
gonna
got any
have to
trouble?
be.
I just
I mean, we
wondered
can
what's going
get that
on with
moving
the
now.
tribe,
I mean-
with the other end of
something we
the
submitted
city.
to EDC.
Have they been hold off to see what's going on with the hotel?
Yeah,
Or
that's-
are they still going forward?
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. That's the Gateway project.
Yeah, so
I think they
so
were holding off to see what was going on with the
Oh.
hotel.
it's a parallel path, but from the developer, for the Hampton Inn, they had to focus on this because of the
Right.
timing. But they're doing that, and the tribe is working on that, and Fishbeck and the environmental people are working on the Eagle grant. So there's stuff going on there. It's just a little bit slower pace. And Roman brings up a good point. There still has to be an Act 381 work plan that this body will have to approve before it goes to MEDC. So, do we need to meet before that then? do you
It's
think?
possible.
So maybe that we have to meet earlier than that, but as long as that Monday timeframe work, on Monday at 6 is work, we'll have to get with Roman and see when that's gonna be.
Yeah.
'Cause we don't want that to delay them being
Oh.
able to break ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I say, it's, like, it's up to you as needed, so I
And
guess
we can-
we're all
we can
available
call
on
that
Monday.
and see,
Yeah.
so.
All right, no, I don't have anything to complain about. You're not involved at all, Roman, with or the Brownfield with that project off of Washington Street that these gentlemen proposed, the old Washington, hotel, or?
So I think they're gonna be pursuing an OPRA, which is an Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act. I
Yeah.
haven't heard anything that they want anything to do with Brownfield. We'll see, but it's still early.
Yeah, I just wondered.
Yeah.
Just wondered.
I didn't think they mentioned.
All right, if nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, if everybody else is happy.
Make that motion, what we adjourn?
And then motion to adjourn, seconded by Shelley, and all in favor, say aye, and, aye. And we'll see you when we see you, right?
Who made the motion?
Marlene.
Marlene.
Marlene, and Shelley seconded.
All right.
And
And I'd like to thank the